There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to World Thought and Cultures. Um, like I told you last time, we gathered your assignments for Chapter 2. Everything is due today. So somehow, most of you have got your stuff in, and most of you have turned something in, but double check. I have one student that has not, for sure. It's not Cody. But anyway, and I told you we were going to start the entry into Aristotle. So I have a neat little a package for you here of information. Uh, so I'll try to repeat it a little bit, and you have time to write it down. You people online, you get the opportunity to play it back and forth. Anyway, Aristotle was another classic Greek, 384 to 322 BC. 62 years is fairly long life, I guess, back in those days compared to now. Okay, Aristotle was a student to Plato. And just as we can see, Plato introduces him to the way. And we all know what the way supposedly is. And it's the way of the Lord, the way to the Lord, the way to stay on track with the Lord. Now, he was given the title as founder of Western philosophy. Does that mean, question to think about, does that mean versus Eastern thoughts or any other thoughts that were in the world at the time? You know, the Greek was the dominant culture, dominant republic of the era of time. So think about that. Okay. I think in your textbook, there's in my old notes a reference to he outlined knowledge, how knowledge should come in groupings or steps. I think this, for me, would be one of the reasons why he was considered the founder of Western philosophy. He said these things. He set up the first rules of logic. And with that, he said there is a systematic order to the natural world. If there's rules to logic, steps to logic, how things should happen, there is definitely a systematic order, in his opinion, to the natural world. Why things occur, why you see things as they are, et cetera, et cetera. His third part of his philosophy is he said man must be happy to flourish. And then he takes this and divides it into four things. In order for man to be happy and to flourish, he needs the following. And the first one is he needs his physical needs met. There's no particular order, by the way. One comes before the other. But man must, in order to be happy, he needs physical needs met. And you can make that whatever you want it to be, and it includes everything that it could possibly be. He must have emotional maturity. Three, he must be virtuous. We've talked about that before. And four, he must be given the ability to think freely. We should not say, this is how you've got to think, this is what you're going to do, but the freedom to think on your own and to be free to do that. Now, in order to get there, he comes up with some other ideas, of course. Um, in his knowledge project, there's another step. If you wanted to label those, the first one again was he was the first one for rules of order, 2, systematic order of natural world, 3, happy to flourish. Well, this would be 4. He urged everyone, in this case it was always the word man or men, to be moderate in all things. Moderation. Moderation. And quote again, moderation. In the area of his concern, he lived in a dangerous time that things were rapidly changing. The Greek dominance was being tested. The Greek gods were being tested. The Greek way of life was being tested. And of course, these apologist individuals like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. Thank you. I would get up, but I'm afraid to drop this. Seems like anyway, in these dangerous times, everything was being attacked by people like this. People meaning Aristotelists, since we're in Aristotle right now. The politics of how things were done, the ethics, the science, the way Socrates and Aristotle and Plato were raised was all being challenged. And just like his 2 philosophers before him, in the references he gets from them and the study of them, Aristotle knows he must change in order for things to go well. So he attempts that, and he attempts to explain that, and his explanation of the golden mean, now it's the new term for moderation, in the Nicomachean Ethics, which we'll be looking at, arises out of this. His writing of it comes from this. Before we do that, though, Aristotle also had a famous student that tried to model things in his, after Aristotle, did a good job in a couple ways and a real poor job in another way. And his most famous known student was Alexander the Great. Most of us in history know Alexander the Great was a conqueror. You know, he found great substance in his being as taking over, countrysides, palaces, all for his own needs and means. Now, Aristotle taught him some of his values and ethics, but Alexander the Great didn't follow directions very well. He tried to do some of it, but his personal demons, like his greed, his excesses, his passions that he couldn't control, would dominate him, and he would start off good and end up in a bad way. He didn't think of anything of going in and conquering and killing thousands of people at a time. It was just the way it was done, and so his ethics were questionable. Aristotle says if he would have followed all his basic steps, he probably would have been one of the best examples that we would have had in history of a person following the way at that time in history. Now that's debatable, but that's what he thought, Aristotle. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Either one of you have a question on what the way is in this case, in this time in history. Still pointed towards God, towards Jesus. Can you think of the way maybe being something else? What do you think? Is the way always seeking God? Turning in your mind? Is there, let's put it this way then, is there a certain way to turn that camera on? And if you don't do certain things, you have not followed the way. There are certain ways for you to get here to school, and you choose sometimes to go one way, sometimes a different way, but you got here. So the way can be a universal term, but in Christianity we know what that means. But just so you have a balance, there's a certain way to prepare yourself to go on a long hike. And if you don't, you might be like my friend, Mount Rainier, who weren't prepared for the 5-minute weather change, and the cloud and the wind coming in and temperature dropping 40 degrees within 5 minutes. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the golden mean. It's a title. It's the golden mean is the ethics of life in moderation. The golden mean is the ethics of life in moderation. And historically, Aristotle did not call it that. He envisioned it as his Nicomachean ethics that's found on page 58 that we're going to come back to in the next class. But setting up, and he also wrote these ethics in 10 books, by the way. And we're looking, I think in your textbook it refers to 1 and 2, just to give you an info. But we're going to come all back to that. But the basic premise of his written ethics is how to get along with others. And look at today's society, how to get along with others. And then he takes it a step further and adds steps to, and how dare the Greek people in charge, how dare he even say we should get along with other countries, other people, other religions. And there you go, as far as a person that becomes an apologist, a person that's willing to take chances and speak out and pick his moments to kind of fight the battles and print and write things that go against the trends of today. And I don't think it would take you much, any of you, to see that in our world around us now. I'm so thankful that we have a lot of young people, a lot of old people. We just have a lot of people that still have the Christian values, and part of our Christian values rubbed off on Aristotle, even though he lived before Jesus was born. But the Christianity movement was around. It was there. It just wasn't the dominant. There was that fight with the Greek version of how life is. Anyway, he spent a good share of his life writing his trustees in 5 areas, and these are just common everyday areas, but he looked at the world through these lenses of, one, these trustees are treatises. They're just writing books, or they're manuscripts or explanations of things. The first one is natural science. value two of poetics, P-O, poetic, Poetics, rhetoric, trying to, explain what is and what isn't. 4, logic. And 5, having a sound philosophy. I'd like to take philosophy for just a minute or two. You can have some pretty good ideas about things, but if you don't have a sound basic philosophy, where do you stand on this issue, and this issue, and this issue? Um, Personally, I think the most important thing is have I call it a cornerstone or a rock or a stake that you drive in is the foundation of everything. And for me, that is God, Jesus. Okay, now you can attach yourself. Let's make up like you have a very long chain or a very long rope. And we're going on a journey, and we're trying to get the way. But I have my foundation, and I get off track. And I'm not to the end of my rope yet or a chain, but that foundation or cornerstone keeps me based. Now my job is to take my philosophy and try to fit it, and gather information and bring it to my philosophy of how things should happen. And again, going back to what I said earlier, one of the main ingredients is moderation. Do things in moderation. Doesn't mean not get excited and go for it, but if you're going to do something, think about the moderation level of it. Okay, last couple things for all the introduction to Aristotle. He says this, and he lived this. You must care for your soul. Like everybody going through this period of history, Plato and Aristotle and Socrates particularly, they all had that. They all saw that you must take care of your soul because the soul is you and what everything is, other than our bedrock or our purpose. So he came up with these questions, these 4 questions. And through his writings and his ethics of the golden mean, he tried to answer these the best he could and let people know. 1, questions to be answered. 1, purpose of life. He gets in a great debate about purpose of life, talks about it. I don't want to give away all the info on his golden mean. We'll be coming back to these. But the purpose of life for Cody, the purpose of life for Larry, should somewhat align ourselves to what our souls and what our purpose is. But figuring out what our purpose is the hard part. Second, how do we become good? There were philosophers, other than the ones that we've been looking at, that have said everyone has evil in them. So with that in mind, Aristotle would go, I wonder, what are the ingredients, the steps, the ways to become good? We'll be coming back to these. 3. What is right in any situation? Now, this comes from his teacher on what is just and unjust. That's the hint for that one. What is right in any situation? What is right for Mr. French may not be right for someone else. But, perhaps when you use the words goodness and just, there's a correlation of what you can see that coming together as perhaps a right and just way. If you didn't have an unjust or a wrong way, how would you know if it was right? That's what he's saying. And then number 4, which I lack sometimes, and other times I have great, but he said, the use of common sense to get to a conclusion. And of course, this going back to his systematic steps and order of logic, but the use of common sense. What would be the common sense thing to do in this situation? And then all this is based on all these ingredients. And all these ingredients, one more time, is his golden mean theory, his Nicomachean ethics that he writes. And I don't know if you guys heard before, there are 10 books to this, and in our next class, we're going to be looking directly at some of the summary of the ethic and reading some of it. So, keeping in line with what I'm told to do is to keep this short. The video is done for today. And you people online, I tried to slow down a little bit, but, getting this written down as a general introduction to Aristotle is all we needed to do today and get it going. And then you all need, I will post the new assignment or perhaps a couple questions. But now I want you to take the time to read his ethics statement, at least the ones in the text. Okay, that's it, and I thank you.